Hi, and welcome to the Andri Petso podcast. This episode is all about digital marketing strategies, what to do when you're launching a new digital venture, and how you can scale your business online. So, if you're starting a project, a blog, a service, or an online store, and you don't know where you have to direct your attention to, I think this episode will help you out a lot. So, I have a marketing background. As far as marketing goes, what I actually mean is I have a film production background. I did commercial film production for 10 years. And I always figured that as soon as I'm going to quit the film industry and start my own business, that these skills would somehow translate to marketing and that I would be really, really good at marketing. And now, when I'm building my own personal brand, sending out newsletters, I'm doing marketing for my book that I released called Mastering Fasting. I have this other project, an e-commerce project, where I sell products to help people build healthy environments. And the latest project I started with my better half, Miriam, is called HomeSum, where we teach people how to create healthy environments and why that matters. And now, as I'm finding out, these skills do not translate. I'm having a lot of trouble marketing and selling my products and just getting them in front of people. And I had to swallow my pride and start learning everything from scratch. So if you're starting a project, a blog, an online store, a service, and you don't know where to pay attention to, I think this podcast will help you out a lot, because today our guest is Logan Merrick. Welcome, Logan. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
A bit of background on Logan. Logan has been starting and building businesses since he was 21 years old. He started his first multi-million-dollar business when he was 23, and his second multi-million-dollar business when he was 27. In his words, he's not the guy who makes the most money or who has the biggest house, and he doesn't care about it because all he cares about is freedom of time and location. Generally, he describes himself as quite lazy, and he doesn't like doing repetitive tasks. So he developed a skill or a habit of breaking things down to simple, repeatable steps and outsourcing those things, to somebody else. This enabled him to build a business that pretty much ran on autopilot, and he only worked on it 2 hours per week, making about $150,000 per month with healthy profit margins. So was that Australian dollars or US dollars?
Yeah, Australian dollars.
Okay.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah. So, Logan, I'm just going to jump right into the marketing aspects, because on HomeSum, our goal right now is to build an email list, because you have to build an email list when you're doing projects like this, online projects. And the best way to build an email list, I was told, is to build a lead magnet, something that you will give out to people for free that they would really want and that they would benefit from. And I created one. We're really proud of this lead magnet. It's a free ebook. Some people told me, I think including you, that we should actually sell this instead because it's so in depth. And people are not just downloading it. I'm not even able to give people away a free ebook. And I don't know what we're doing wrong, but we'll circle back to this one later. What are lead magnets and why do we need them?
That's a good question. So a lead magnet is quite literally what it sounds like. It's a magnet. It's a piece of content. You're referring to it as a magnet because it magnetizes people to it and turns them into leads. So how does it work? You create a piece of content. Let's say in your case, you created an ebook. And I've done this in the past. I think it's probably one of the better ways to generate leads, or you can do like, $10 off on your e-commerce store or whatever it is. These are all lead magnets. Video tutorials, whatever, right? And so you create this piece of content. It's a valuable piece of content. And then you create a way for people to find out about this piece of content, which I think you're using Facebook ads. And then you're driving traffic through whatever traffic source, in your case, using Facebook ads, to this place. Let's call it a landing page, just a page dedicated to promoting this lead magnet, this ebook. And they learn about it, and then they leave their information, normally an email address, sometimes a phone number, first name, whatever it might be. and they become a lead and they become part of your database. So that's essentially what a lead magnet is.
But what are the best practices to creating a lead magnet, for example? Because for Circadia, the second e-commerce project that I mentioned earlier, we were creating a lead magnet with our team, and a part of the team thought that lead magnets are just something you give out, just like in an empty PDF. They're going to give an email, we're going to promise something, they're going to download the PDF. And I felt as if I were to give out this PDF in the form that it currently is, that people would get angry. Like, I gave my email for you for this, and it would actually not convert a lead, but I did get the email, but the person would unsubscribe or not buy my products out of spite. So are there any certain best practices or things you want to make sure, or like a checklist when you're creating a lead magnet and we're giving it out to people?
Let's go back to the core principles of marketing. So the basic principle of marketing is understanding your audience. And if you really understand your audience and you really understand what their questions are, what are their concerns, what are their fears, what are the worries, what is the information that they really want to know, and then we apply that to, let's say, Circadia, we take that audience and we have this thorough understanding of the audience. I think your audience are people who are they're well endowed, they've got money, and they've got an interest in looking after their health, because otherwise, why would you spend 400 euros on a water filter?
500.
500?
Yeah.
Sorry, 500 euros on a water filter. And to me, I'm obviously a customer, and I've referred many of my friends to you. So
you were actually one of the first customers.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Alar, and then me and maybe Taryn or something.
Yes. Yeah. You're in the top 3, the honorable first 3.
It's an honor. Yeah, so you have this understanding of the audience. So let's say people who are really interested in health, but they have questions, they have maybe concerns. Like for me, I had all the answers because I could just ask you directly. But with, let's say, a random person who doesn't know Circadia, doesn't know you, they're going to have other questions. I don't know what those questions are, but it would be as a marketer, it would be my utmost interest to learn what those questions might be. I'd be really intently studying and learning from my customers in this, especially in the early stage, but ideally all the way through, but especially in this early stage, to really understand what are the concerns. And then let's say I understand the concerns, and let's say I have top 5 concerns, because one of the concerns is going to be price. So price, you can either address that with a discount code, or you can address it as part of the top 5 concerns, let's say ebook. So you might look at, what are the top 5 concerns? Well, 1 is why do I need a filter? 2, why is this filter the right one? 3, what are the problems with not having a water filter? All these sort of things. And then you can structure that into an ebook, a lead magnet, using the main reason why they should, their main concern, addressing the main concern is the subject. And how do you know which one is going to be the way you write this? How do you know what is going to be most effective? I would take that, let's call it a pop-up, probably would work really well for Circadia. I'd take a pop-up and I would A/B test. And I would run an A/B test where I'll try one against the other. So let's say I've got top 5 concerns. I'm going to test the first 2. Then I want to pick the winner and test the next that against another one. And then pick the winner and test that against another one. And then I'm going to find which concern is the biggest concern, or which concern has got the biggest grab. And then I'll take that one concern, and then I'll start playing with the wording. How do I word this in a way that's going to have the biggest impact? I write this out maybe 20, 30 times, try to figure out what is the right language. Do I want to use their desire, or do I want to use their fear? Do I want to use their, urgency, and all this sort of stuff? And then I'll test that all against each other, find the best ones that I like and start testing that. And then I'll start looking at design elements. Keep the design really simple to start with. And then I start playing around with design elements. Do I put a picture in? Do I put the picture on the left side or the right side? I've literally run a test where I put the picture on the left side, and then on the other one, I put the picture on the right side. And do you know what happened? I had a massive increase. I think it was 30% increase in subscribers from the one where the picture's on the right. And this will depend on, I think this depends on a lot of the time, whether you have a feminine audience or a masculine or male audience, because apparently women look to the left first and men look to the right first, or something like that.
Now, recalling some theories from my university photography class, I remember that when you have a live person on a photograph, the direction of the eyes matters a lot. So you don't want to have your models, for example, looking away from your content. It's much more desirable to have your models look at the content that you're presenting them. And supposedly these tiny little psychological nuances do help a lot.
Oh, for sure. And I've tested this as well. And I've tested the colors of the buttons. Like this is like later down the line, like when you're running out of things to test. I've tested having a full background versus a no background. So basically like you have a little pop-up that comes up. I want to block out the background versus people being able to see the background. I've tested the color of that background. It makes a huge difference. I found that using white compared to black and having a slight opacity so they can, I don't know if that's the right word, but like so people can, transparency so people can see through the background, and just testing the hell out of that, really going a long way. Because the difference between you and filmmaking before, and although that's part of marketing, the difference with filmmaking and with what we're talking about now and what's kind of available today is that you have this immediacy of feedback. And so you can incrementally test small things constantly and have these like rapid succession of improvements and like constantly.
But there's also the fact that there is no one recipe for success. Every entrepreneur, every website or webmaster should actually test their own audience on what they respond to and what works best for them. And when you say that a transparent background, black 50% opacity works best for you, that would not necessarily work best for my audience, people who are from Estonia, people who are aged 40 plus, buying these RO units, for example.
I agree. Yeah, that's why the first principle of marketing is know your own audience, right? If you are assuming that, let's say I've told you what I've told you, and people listening at home, they've heard what I've said, and they go and apply that as a rule, then it may work, but it may not as well. And that's why testing is so important. So you're constantly testing to optimize, the messaging, right? To optimize the performance of your collateral.
I love how well we circled back the first part and like made it whole and packed it up nicely. Started from rules of marketing, ended back on rules of marketing. Worked really well.
Yeah.
But that's what you get when you have a professional interviewer like me.
Exactly. It's very, very astute.
Yes, thank you. So now you have a good lead magnet. You've optimized it. You have tons of emails flowing in.
Well, let's say now I have a good pop-up.
Now you have a good pop-up.
Yeah.
And do you have emails flowing in?
So I have emails flowing in. And so my first step would be essentially to do more or less what you did, which is you created an ebook. And I would keep that, but I know you put a lot of heart and soul into that, but I would have kept it real simple. Like I probably would have kept it black and white, honestly. If that's just me, because I don't know. Is this good? I don't know. I'm not the determinant. I'm not the person who is, I'm not in a position to say whether or not this is good. My customers, my audience will tell me if it's good. So I have an example of this. I set up a website because I was like, I got it really into fasting a while back, a few years ago. I was doing this 1 meal a day thing and started writing a blog about it and sharing kind of like my experience and the research that I was doing, pulling together people's like research and people's learnings and kind of like forming my own opinions and sharing that out. And yeah, and I kind of also, because I've had 2 businesses where I've built this type of funnel and it's gone really well. And I thought, well, if I can do it a 3rd time, then I know that I can do this. I know what I'm talking about. And I set this up and it worked really well. But the ebook was literally a Google Sheet, Google Doc. I just typed the information into it, formatted it really basically, and then downloaded the PDF and that was the ebook. So it was as simple as it could get, but it was getting massive amount of downloads because what people are looking for is not necessarily design, although design is a good element to consider as part of your marketing. But what people are looking for is answers to their problems, right? And so to put design before the answer is, to me, that's a fallacy. So okay, so coming back, so we have a great pop-up now.
I'd actually quickly like to add to the previous point as well. I think perfectionism, and I'm speaking for myself as well and some of my friends, perfectionism kind of kills you in this space because you want to be agile. You want to test these little things and products quickly, and you don't want to commit too much to something. And I guess a good rule to follow is that 80% is good enough, which is what I'm doing with Circadia most of the time. I just put something website up, it works, people are like buying it, and it's actually converting. And with HomeSum, for example, the lead magnet ebook you're referring to, it's, from my part, it's just an assumption that people want to know this stuff because this was the first thing we created for Homes. We did not know our audience, and we're still finding our audience. And we're just assuming that what we want to tell people is what people actually want to know. But the sweet spot is at the crossover of those two circles. So you're completely right that we shouldn't jump head in and test with little things. And later down the line, when I've, let's say, tested this ebook for a year and got a lot of feedback and made new versions, then I could maybe design it and create a fancier thing around it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the challenge with being really intelligent, like you are a very intelligent person, you are very smart when it comes to, your subject matter. And the challenge that comes with that is you don't realize just how naive people are. And I even notice that I'm pretty like well read on, general health and that sort of thing. But even when we're talking, I'm just like, holy shit, like I can't keep up. And so being able to, how do I put this? Being like, yes, just coming back to who's your audience, like really understanding who your audience is and where they're at in terms of their sophistication. If your audience are biohackers, they're going to be highly sophisticated. They're going to be like you. They can talk about this at, like extraordinary depth because they've done their own research, and they can debate and they can, learn from this kind of high level discussion, or really like deep discussion. Whereas if you're talking to, Jan from Talon, and he's just decided to start thinking about maybe looking after his health a little bit, you're going to be having a very different conversation. And if you have a conversation with him at the level that you'll be talking to your biohacker friends, if you're talking to him at that level, he's going to find that to be intimidating, or he's going to find it confusing. He won't be able to keep up. He won't find any value in it. And you might even make him feel deterred from looking after his health.
Intimidation was a good keyword here, and I have a perfect segue to the next topic. But intimidation is something that my partner Miriam, she has her own holistic health for women Instagram. She's a nutritionist, and she knows women's female health very well. So she's a female health expert. That's the correct description. And just recently, she heard somebody being referred to her Instagram page. And the person was put off because they felt intimidated by the content that was on her Instagram page. So this is what you're talking about. And what happened to us recently with HomeSum as well, our list is quite small. The HomeSum list is currently only 300 people. And what happened to us is we started putting out weekly newsletters, which we're now going to cut down to bi-weekly after this incident that just actually happened yesterday. So we put out last week's newsletter, and we had 7 unsubscribers. So that's 300 people, 50% open rate, 150 delivered, and 7 people unsubscribed. So that's like around 5% unsubscribe rate, which is unacceptable at this time. And what I think might have happened is the newsletters were not actually addressing their problems. We were sharing industry news. And these are not the people who care about EU regulations. They just want to know how to clean up mold and be healthy. So we're decided to slow it down, not send out this many newsletters, and only send out newsletters if we really want to tell something and if we really have something topical to share. And with newsletters in general, let's say you have the lead magnet, you have the pop-up, you have emails flowing in. My inbox is completely filled with spam and newsletters, and I hardly read any, and I keep unsubscribing them on a weekly basis, and I don't know how they keep popping up. But I have been sending out my own weekly newsletter for my personal brand for more than a year now, and I still have a steady 60% open rate. And from as much as I've heard, that's really good, or feel free to tell me otherwise. But I don't monetize or sell anything through my newsletters. I just share what I've been up to and what I've been researching or pondering and experimenting with. But you have also been successful with newsletters, and it's somewhat of your specialty, I know. How would you frame newsletters for people? Or if you want to take a step back, if you have the emails, would the newsletter be the outlet that you choose?
I mean, a newsletter is maybe the wrong word. It's just the term that we use in the industry, but it's not necessarily a newsletter. Like let's say if I look at in my current business, we send 2 emails per week as a newsletter. We also have automations that go out depending on what people have done. If they subscribe to something, have they requested some information, this sort of thing. So we have these automations that go out, and then we also send newsletters. The newsletters won't get sent to people if they have received another email that has a higher level of priority. It won't get sent to that person, won't be received by that person. What was the question again? How would I frame a newsletter? How would I describe what a newsletter is?
Yes, how would you frame newsletters for people? Why should they be doing them? What expectations should someone set if they're sending out the newsletter with their business? What are the metrics that they should look out for, and what goals to set around sending newsletters?
Yeah, okay. So the main thing about a newsletter is you've got to have high volumes, or it's ideal to have as high volumes as possible of new emails coming in. And then with that newsletter is maintaining a good level of open rate, maintaining a subscriber base that is engaged. And if you lose engagement, then you need to work on getting your engagement back. And assuming that you're doing all the things, building your email database and maintaining a good, healthy email list, then what you have available to you there is an audience of people who are highly interested in what you have to say and what you have to share, who you can contact on demand to share information or to promote. And I would suggest as a good habit would be to do both on a regular basis. So for us, we do this on 2 times a week. That's pretty high cadence, but that's an e-commerce brand to, let's say, a millennial audience, and the audience is women. So that's kind of like, I guess, fairly typical. If you look at like beauty businesses, it's a beauty brand. If you look at beauty brands in general, like they have a really high cadence of weekly newsletters. So in a nutshell, what you have there is you have a tool, a platform for contacting your audience on a regular basis. And a form of contact that you might use is you just want to share, because you got to kind of like share information and that they really want, going back to like the know your audience thing. You got to share information that's going to keep them opening and clicking on your emails, so that you have this high engagement, because you want to maintain a high level of engagement with your audience. And then on the other hand, you've got the ability to send offers. So whenever you have a sale, or whenever you want to promote a particular feature about your product or something like that. So let's say, for coming back to Cicadia, you guys sell products, and you sell products that will help people create and maintain a clean environment in your home. So content might be you've released a video where you, the founder of Cicadia, shares your top 10 tips for maintaining a clean home, or getting mold out of your carpet, or whatever it might be, dust out of your bed, or these sort of things. So it's like content, so that's what keeps people coming back. But then who cares if people are coming back if they're not buying, right? Because you're in business at the end of the day. So then on the other hand, therefore you'll want to be sending information that is going to cause them to buy from you. Maybe an offer one day, if you've got someone who's been on your list for a long period of time, and you want to make an offer to get them to commit to buying. Or you release a new product, instead of running ads or just ads, you can send out a campaign as well. So there's 2 really cool things about email. I think I've covered that fairly broadly, but covered most aspects of email. But there are 2 really cool things about email that I really like. And one of them is that it's almost free. So you have, let's say I have a list of, I think it's 180,000 people or something along those lines on our email list. And so when we send out an email and we make, a good amount of sales from that, that would cost, maybe with advertising, that would cost thousands to try to, let's say in a month, we would spend in the thousands to generate the same amount. Like maybe with ads, we would spend 30% or 20% at least to try to generate what we would from the emails. from the email campaigns. But with email, we would spend maybe 5%. So it's a really high return on investment a marketing channel. So that's what I really like about it. That was one thing. And the other thing is, in a world where I guess it's becoming harder and harder to reach your audience, because companies like Apple, with their new iOS 14.5 update that came out last year, makes it so that right now it's like impossible to get third-party data. Third-party data meaning someone else's data. So you have to try to collect this data yourself. What I mean is, you used to be able to run an ad at really high efficiency that would target someone based on data that Facebook has about that person or someone else has about that person, because they aggregate the data. So it would be really hard to target that person. Whereas if I own the data, then I can give that data to Facebook and I can say, target this person for me. So if I have a database full of people, and I think most email marketing platforms will allow this, will have the ability for this. You can connect your email marketing platform to Facebook and feed your database into Facebook. It's going to match your data and your database with the people on their platform, and you can target those people that are in your database via Facebook.
So that sounds like I'm taking the conversions and the highly engaged people that I have in my database, and I can even create, let's say, lookalike audiences on Facebook to find people who are like these people.
Correct.
With the same interests. Okay, yeah. That sounds really powerful, actually.
It is, yeah. I mean, when you think about a database, most people think, I have a name, I have an email address, cool. But actually what you have is if you have the name, you have the name, you have the email address, you have the source where they came from, you have when they came to your website, you have the pages that they went to, you have all the pop-ups they've interacted with. If you connect other applications into your email database, into your email platform, so let's say your customer service platform connects into your email platform, then you have that data in there as well. And you can create more richer context around each one of your people in your database. And based on that context, you can run more specific campaigns in Facebook.
Circling back for a second, how did you land on the 2 emails per week? What kind of tests did you run to experiment with?
So we actually started with 1 email per month. And I think this is like 3 years ago or something. And then we thought, well, what would happen if we did 2 emails per month? And so we started doing 2 emails per month, and we noticed that we would make more revenue and we had no adverse effects. So we were like, okay, cool. What about if we did 1 a week? And same thing again. We're like, okay, we're just making more revenue, but there's no adverse effects, or the adverse effects at this rate are very minimal. So the unsubscribe rate's very minimal. The revenue and the benefits outweigh the unsubscribe rate. We're like, okay, cool. And then we got advised by an email marketing specialty agency, and they suggested we do 2 emails per week. So we tried 2 emails per week. And again, we were just making more revenue, but the adverse effects were really minimal. So we were, we didn't do it without reluctancy, like we were really careful not to piss people off and negatively affect our email sender score. But it's been fine. And I mean, maybe we should try 3 emails per week, but it does just feel like that's maybe a little bit too much. But that's something we could probably try.
And with this high traffic of email sales, because you mentioned that you have to give content that people like, I would imagine the way I could find it sustainable is that I send on content that I create anyway for other channels, and I just include this content and links to this content to other channels in the email newsletters as well. I guess, let's say I put out a YouTube video a week with HomeSum, but I also send the same YouTube video with the newsletter. So that's content for the newsletter people. They know that the video came out, but it's also sending traffic to YouTube, and it just all ties together. So I guess the question here is, how much do you repurpose content for your newsletters or in general? Or like you create one piece of content, how much can you get from that, or what's your thinking around this?
Yeah, okay. I love this. So as a marketer, you're always trying to think of what can I share with my audience that's noteworthy. And so, in our business, we have two people whose almost primary job it is to create content. So we have one girl, and her primary job is to create blog content. So she writes one blog post per week, and she rewrites one blog post per week. Rewriting is a really good habit of making sure that blog posts are kept up to date, and that sends positive signals to Google to say the content on this website is very relevant, and we're constantly looking at how we can improve it. So her job is to write blog posts, and then what she does is she'll take this blog post and then she will disseminate this all over the internet. She'll post it to Twitter, she'll post it to Instagram as a story, she'll promote it in an email, she'll have it boosted on Facebook, she'll put it on Reddit and Quora, just sharing it out to all our audiences everywhere. And then what happens is she passes that blog post to the other girl. And the other girl is more in charge of creating the video content and more visceral content for platforms like Instagram and TikTok and stuff, and YouTube. So she'll take that piece of content. She actually is the one who turns that into a story on Instagram and Facebook. But she'll turn that blog content into a video. Basically, the blog is a script, and then she'll create a video talking about the whatever that blog post is about. And then that, in this exact same manner, gets disseminated all over the internet. And then we'll take that YouTube video and we'll condense it down and turn that into an Instagram story and Facebook story and maybe even a TikTok video. And then we'll also take the YouTube video and we'll disseminate that out through emails. And we might even take that YouTube video and we might post that as a unique post on our blog. And, so we're constantly repurposing content. So you can take one piece of content, you turn into, 100 pieces of content.
So you mentioned something about rewriting content, that Google really likes it. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I had to swallow my pride and start teaching myself digital marketing from scratch. One of the things that I've been learning for the past weeks is SEO, which stands for Search Engine Optimization. If you're not familiar with it, there are certain tactics and tricks to make your website stand up more in search engines, such as Google. And when people are looking for certain products or for answers to their questions. So this is, let's say, intent-based marketing. Someone is looking for a solution for the problem, and your job is to find out what people are looking for and put the solutions in front of them. And SEO is based on optimizing your content for certain keywords that people would actually type out and look for. But to me, the first page of Google seems to be dominated by paid ads and giants in the space, and that smaller companies that are starting out have zero chance. I've heard about long tail keywords, so that's maybe what we want to talk about a bit. But also, when I'm browsing the web, I rarely click on page 2 results, not to mention going deeper. Yet SEO is still recommended as a growth tactic. So my question is, from your point of view, is it still even possible for a new company to come up from nowhere and rank on the first page of Google?
Great question. And the answer is most of the time. And actually, I would rephrase that. I'd say the answer is yes, but you have to be selective about your keyword. If you go into an area of business that is super, super, super competitive, then you have to be really selective about your keywords. Let's say you go into digital marketing. Like, digital marketing is so competitive. And so if you wanted to rank for keywords in digital marketing, you would have to go really long on your long tail keywords. So let's say digital marketing is...
Sorry, just a quick little interruption. For those who don't know what a long tail keyword is, if you search digital marketing, for example, or just marketing, that's a short keyword. If you search digital marketing for dummies, that's forwards, that's a longer tail keyword. And if you want to go for a really long tail keyword, it's digital marketing for dummies in Australia, for example. So the people who are searching for these things actually put a lot of intent behind their searches, and this creates for a way more targeted keyword, but also because it's so specific, it has lower traffic.
Yeah, exactly. So you have like the short keywords, and then you have the really long ones. And what you've got to kind of do, if you're in a competitive environment, and how do you find out if it's competitive? There are tools that will tell you if it's competitive. Like Ubersuggest is the one I use. I really like it. But the guy who ranks number 1 for digital marketing also owns Ubersuggest. So there's tools that can help you figure out, A, is your area of business competitive? And B, what are the low-hanging fruit insofar as keywords go? Am I answering a question? I can't remember. Was there a question?
Sorry. Yes. The question is it still possible to rank on the first page of Google for new businesses?
Yeah. So I'd say that it's like any business, really. It's like if the area of business is super, super, super competitive, then it's going to be super, super difficult to rank in that area. I have a friend who he started his business maybe 3 years ago, where he was a digital agency, and him and his now fiance, they were running this digital agency, and they were going all right, but they weren't like banking checks, they were going okay. And then we would just like catch up and talk and kind of share ideas. And I suggested that you should probably look at niching down into a particular area within digital marketing. And so what he did was he had a look at what he's currently like what his customer profile looks like at the moment, insofar as he's got, let's say, 10 customers. Are there any patterns in the industries? And he found that there was one industry. The company is called Hey Digital, and there was one industry that he was particularly involved in, and that was his background was in SaaS, software as a service companies. And so as a result of that, he was also heavily kind of like invested in so far as his client base goes in that industry. And so I was like, well, why don't you try to niche down into this area? So it was a strategic business move to start with, not just marketing. It wasn't just, well, what keywords should we rank for? It was, as a business, where's our, whatever you call it, blue ocean or whatever. And so he started looking at, the first questions that came back were, oh, this is actually a pretty hard, area because of the analytics and stuff like that. But once we kind of talked that over and he went back and had a look at his situation, and then they decided we're just going to do it. They figured out, the solution around analytics, and they're like, we're going to do it. And then from there, it became really easy because there was no digital agency for SaaS, anywhere. And so he would do the keyword research for that, and he wins every time. And he would do like podcasts, or I think he does live streaming, and then he turns it into a podcast. And he developed these really unique strategies around his niche. So you got to look at, like, if you're a digital agency and you want to rank for SEO, that's going to be really, really hard, I think, at this point, because it's such a mature industry. But if you're a digital agency that specializes in cryptocurrency marketing or whatever, blockchain marketing or whatever, then you can probably, even that might be really competitive by now, but you can probably, niche down into these types, or DeFi agency or something like that. Then there's where you're going to find your opportunities. There's the old saying, what is it? There's riches and niches. I love that saying because it's so absolutely true. In my last two businesses, both the businesses that became multi-million-dollar businesses really quickly is not because Logan's a genius or anything like that. I got really kind of lucky, because the first business was a mobile app development agency when there were almost no mobile app development agencies. And we had no money for Google Ads. We did SEO, ended up ranking number one for mobile app development agency Melbourne. And that made us a shitload of cash. And then the second business I set up was a beauty brand that sold a particular type of hair extension called a halo hair extension. That's the industry description. And we ranked number one for Halo Hair Extensions Australia, and that made us a shitload of cash. And then from there, we ranked for a number of other keywords. So before anyone was even doing this, in both of those instances, we started ranking for the keywords. And as a result of that, the organic growth was tremendous.
So I guess it also works in a way where you start ranking for one keyword. It's going to boost also your domain authority, which is a metric in SEO. And you're going to start ranking better for other keywords as a result of that boost.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this also sounds like knowing when understanding SEO and doing this niche research is already very good at the stage of a business plan, because you can research if people are actually looking for this service or this company you want to create. And I guess it's a very good data point to take into consideration. Let's say you want to start a new business washing, I have a doghouse back here, washing dog houses. And you think it's a really good idea. Your friends tell you that's a really good idea. But then you go on, let's say Uber suggest, for example, and Google like doghouse washing services and there's zero. So that should give you an indication of maybe you shouldn't get into this niche because people are not actually looking for this.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Like, it's a good way to get that early validation for your idea. So for sure, 100%. And I'm a conservative. And so I, like, in my business moves, I'm very conservative. And so I would use that as an indication of whether or not I should or shouldn't do something. But at the same time, when, let's say, it's kind of like a far out example, but like, let's say when Apple founder Steve Jobs announced the iPhone or the iPod, I don't know if there was anyone searching for iPods, you know? So, but they're in a different situation as well. I don't know. Like, I'm just going to share like what I do, and I would definitely do exactly what you just said.
So it's finding the balance. Just use that as a data point and make informed decisions based on that data point. So going a bit deeper and maybe wrapping it up as well a bit is you run a successful company and you run successful companies by most or any standards. I don't know. Sorry. Maybe if not, I'm not a professional company evaluator person. But what do you wish that you maybe knew earlier about landing new clients? And if you want to scale your business in the form of getting more clients.
Yeah. So, okay. So I'm not interested in clients because a client is like, let's say if you're an agency, you have clients. But if you're a retailer, you have customers. I'm more interested in retail because it's more in my experience. So, but regardless, I think it's going to be more or less the same thing, right?
It's a language barrier. Customers is what I meant.
The approach is going to be the same. You know, how would I approach getting clients is the same as how I would approach getting customers. The first thing I would do is, just going back to the last point, is I would try to find my niche. I would try to find an area of business where I can be the best and I can be uncontested. Partly because, going back to the original, like my introduction or whatever, I'm a little bit lazy and I don't want to put in a massive amount of effort ongoingly just to stay competitive. I'm just not interested in that. So I want to get the maximum result out of minimal effort. And I know that if I go into an area of business, into a market where there's no competitors and I have the perfect solution, I'm going to win. I'm going to win at least for a while. And I'm going to be the only person doing this for a while. And in that short time, I can develop significant marketing assets that's going to give me a competitive advantage down the line. So, for example, let's take my current e-commerce business. We developed this process that we've just been talking about, SEO and lead magnets and email marketing. And this is like the core to our marketing. Organic traffic, we get probably, I think, is like 80, 90% of our traffic is organic. So it's an asset that we've got. We were the first people to do halo hair extensions, especially in Australia, but e-commerce, period. And as far as I'm aware, maybe I'm wrong, but at least from my research, that's what I found. There might have been one or two that I didn't see until maybe later or something, but we were the only ones doing that at the time. I was going to say, yeah. And so when everyone else came into the market, they had a hard time taking that channel from us. When it comes to SEO, like, we're just totally uncontested. You can't knock us off our perch because all we do, our entire website, is totally focused on owning halo hair extensions. I mean, even right now, we are organically growing and taking the keywords from other people in other countries other than Australia. Are we ranking first page, like even number one in many cases for these types of keywords in European countries, in Asian countries, in the Americas? So we just focused on this. We also do advertising, like Facebook ads. We do a little bit of like referral marketing, all this sort of stuff. We do social media actually quite a lot, but as social media, like, they can take that from us. Paid ads, cost is going up. It's becoming more competitive. They can take that from us, but they can't take SEO. Like, that's uncontested.
So build roots up and become uncontestable. I think that's the keyword here.
Yeah, basically, just find your micro niche and build a business that is really strong within that micro niche. And like, I mean, personally, I'm interested at the moment. I find it quite good to build a business that's around like 1 to maybe 5 million in revenue, maybe 1 to 3 million in euros or USD or whatever. I find that to be kind of like the sweet spot when I'm talking about small businesses. So you start really small and then you grow into like something that's significant, like relatively significant. We're not talking about $100 million company. That's a whole different ball game, but something relatively significant is good.
It's going to be a long journey. This is what I'm going to try and do with Circadia. I still have a lot of figuring out to do, but it seems like I'm going to get distribution rights for Finland, Latvia, and Lithuania. So I'm going to start covering this area and maybe expand a bit to Europe and get my supply chain and shipping set up. But that's a whole other conversation for a whole other time. Logan, it's been great fun. I have tons of notes and things I have to go through now, because that's the reason I'm doing this podcast. These are for me. I want to learn. If you learn something, that's great. I'm happy. But this is my time, my learning. So I just want to thank you for sharing all your knowledge, coming over here, sharing your time with us. Do you have any closing comments that you want to make, or any asks, or any socials or websites to share? This is where you can do shameless self-marketing here, because you taught us so much about marketing.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, I'll do a quick plug, but then I also wanted to share like some parting notes. My shameless plug would be, I don't have a personal brand, and that's something that I'll probably look at doing this year. But my shameless plug would be, if you are interested in having a look at what we've been talking about and what that looks like in practice, go to sittingprettyhalohair.com. So sitting, like sitting on a chair, pretty girl, halo, like the what a angel has, and hair, which is on your head. It'll make sense once you see the website and once you go there. If you want to have a look at what it looks like, feel free to go there. And then I guess, in the future, when I start my own personal brand, I used to do personal branding, but I got really overwhelmed by that.
I found some skeletons in your closet when Googling you.
Don't Google me. Yeah, there's like a lot of really old shit. But and the last parting notes I would say are, like, what we've talked about in this conversation is a lot of information. Like, there's a lot that we've talked about, and by no means have we thoroughly covered all aspects of this topic. So there's a lot in it, and that's okay. If you decide that you want to use this as a strategy, which I think is a really good one, if you decide that you want to use this to grow your business or build a business, then I would say accept the fact that it's going to take time. And it's like any skill, it's something you get good at, and it's going to take learning and trial and error. Listening to podcasts, learn from people like Neil Patel, who's the guy who owns Uber Suggest. Learn from people and then try it out, test it, see how it works, and get good at it over time. By doing this one thing, don't do too many different things. By doing this one thing over a period of time, eventually it becomes easy, and then you end up in a position where you can deploy the same strategy over and over. I feel like if I was to start a new business today, this is exactly what I would do. What I've talked about now is exactly what I would do again. I would just do the exact same thing. I have the framework. I know how it works. I have the systems. I have the processes all documented. I would just do the exact same thing again, and it would most likely work. I say most likely because I have no guarantees, but every time I've done it, it's worked. So basically what I'm describing is the process of developing a skill that enables you to print cash, essentially. Build a business to print cash.
That's great, Logan. This has been great. It's been great fun. Thank you again. If this podcast survives, and it should. Let's hope it does. I hope it does as well. Then we're definitely going to have a round 2 and have some fun. Well, Logan is in Estonia, where I'm actually from. We met in Estonia. So he's sitting in this old town apartment right now. Beautiful background, by the way. But I am currently in Portugal, and I miss my dear friend Logan. So anytime we're going to end up in the same room, we're going to drink kombuchas, have some fun. And miss you, man. Can't wait to hang out and talk to you soon.
Yeah, miss you too, man. We'll chat soon.
And to everyone else listening, if you like this podcast, please go ahead and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And also consider subscribing to my weekly newsletter on andripeetso.com. That's ANDRIPEETSO.com. It's a super simple 5-bullet point newsletter, a format that I loved and adapted or stole from Tim Ferriss, since I loved that format. And I've been successfully sending out this newsletter every Friday, or let's call it every weekend, because sometimes it's Saturdays, for a year and a half now, without fail. Okay, maybe 1 or 2 fails. But it's getting amazing engagement and amazing open rates and amazing feedback. So I'm happy to keep this going. It's just a little something to think about, let's say brain food or something for your consideration for the weekend. It's 5 bullets of things that I've been up to or that I'm thinking about or I'm experimenting with. Books or podcasts that I'm listening to or articles and podcasts that I've released. And soon, maybe even videos, who knows? So to sign up for this newsletter, go to andripetso.com. That's my name. ANDRIPEETSO.com. I'm gonna add it to the show notes how you can spell that. But I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. The next one is already dropping next week, so I hope to see you then.